Hello crafty friends, this is Julia from Craft Room Adventures for Sunny Studio Stamps, and today I have my very first winter Christmas card to share with you. I stamped my images from Snow One Like You, or my image really, it's just one, onto Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm coloring that in with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I just added a tiny bit of shading on the edges of the snowman with the color 36. Just to add a bit of definition and make it look like snow. And then I'm bringing in a pink shade for my accessories, and I'm using the 202 for the scarf on my snowman, the little band on the hat, and also the little girl's dress and her shoes. And I'm just blending that out with a colorless blender. Just pulling the pigment out a little bit because I wanted it to be more of a like candy pink and not like bright pink, if that makes sense. Also blending out the little girl's dress or jacket, I think. Then I wanted to add in some purple, and I'm using the color 80 and 803 for the accessories on the girl. Just blending that out with a colorless blender again. I did add a little bit of the 80, which is more of a true purple shade, but mostly it's the 803 because I wanted it to be more of a pastel purple. I don't add any shading to the little pom-pom and the rim of the hat of the girl because I'm adding some shimmer to that. Then for the greenery on the snowman's hat, I'm just bringing in a little bit of green. It's a very, very light green. For the skin, I'm using 74, then 71, and I wanted a bit more definition, so I'm going in with 64. And then again with 71 to blend that out. A little bit of 200 on the cheeks of the snowman and the girl. And then I'm blending everything out with a colorless blender. Adding a bit more blush. For the hair, I'm using the color 68 and 65. And I'm blending that out with 64 and then with a colorless blender. I'm using a little bit of black, the color 10 for the hat on the snowman. And then again, just pulling out the pigment with a colorless blender, making sure to leave a nice highlight in the center. And I'm using the color 54 pale orange for the snowman's nose and a little bit of 72 for shading because I didn't want that to be like a stark orange. Again, going in with 64 for the buttons on the snowman and the little twig arms. And I'm blending that out with 64, I'm sorry. And then blending that out with a colorless blender. And then I'm bringing in Stardust Stickles and I'm covering the entire area of the little pom-pom and the rim of her hat just for some sparkle and shine. For my background, I'm adding a little bit of spun sugar to the middle of an A2 sized panel. or it's slightly smaller than A2 because I'm adding a scalloped frame. Then I'm bringing in the forest tree stencil, or the stencils. It's a 3-part stencil. And I'm ink blending the trees with cracked pistachio. I'm just using the 3rd stencil, the number 3 stencil. And I'm just adding the cracked pistachio on those. Then I'm using the number 2 stencil, and I'm adding the cracked pistachio as well as evergreen bough, just to make this layer a shade darker than the background. And for my 3rd and final layer, I use the number 1 stencil, again with the cracked pistachio as a base layer, and then adding even more of the evergreen bough, just to make sure that they have a nice transition. Then I needed to finish ink blending the background, and I'm using Peach Flamingo as a transition from the spun sugar, and then I'm adding some shaded lilac from the top. Just going back and forth between the colors until I have the intensity I wanted. Adding more purple, blending that out with the Peach Flamingo. And then I'm going in again with the spun sugar just to get a smooth transition to the trees. And now I'm just adding lots of white splatters to make it look like it's snowing. I set that off to dry. And once it was all the way dry, I added it to a slightly smaller than A2 sized card base because I wanted the beautiful scalloped edge of the fancy rectangle frames to show. I'm just adding my snowy hills that I added a little bit of ink blending to. It was the peacock feathers, just a tiny little bit on the edge of the snowy hill. And then I'm stamping my sentiment from the stamp set onto the lowest hill. And I'm just stamping that in black. There's Snow One Like You, which I think is just so fun. And at that point, I didn't realize that I stamped it kind of low because the bottom part of my hill will be covered with the scalloped frame, but I'll be fixing that in a little bit. Then I'm also just playing around with the placement of the Lacy snowflakes, which are just so beautiful. I die cut them out of white glitter cardstock, or white iridescent cardstock, and I'm just making sure it works with a frame. I'm adding those down first so that the ones that hang off the edge will be like nicely tucked behind the frame. And I'm just gluing down the center of the snowflakes so that the edges kind of stand up a little bit, which gives it lots of nice dimension. Just snipping off the excess of the ones that are overhanging. It was kind of tricky because I was too impatient to wait for the glue to dry. Then I'm adding in my lowest hill, and in a second you'll see me realize, once I added the glue, of course, I never realized it before, that you can still read the sentiment, but it's like right up against the edge, and I really didn't like the way this looked. So I just fumbled around with the frame a little bit, and yeah, I realized I didn't like it. So yeah, I'm just adding some foam tape to the back of my image, and then I was like, no, this can't stay. So I'm just pulling up the frame. The glue wasn't all the way dry. I'm just scooting over the lowest of the hill just a little bit higher up, adding glue to the back of the frame again. And except you and me, nobody will ever know. And I think it looks much, much better this way. I'm finishing adding foam tape to the back of my image. And I'm just adding that in the center. And there we go, that finishes my card for today. This image is just the cutest, and I had so much fun making this. The tree stencil gives such nice dimension, and the snowflakes are just beautiful. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Until next time, have an amazing day. Bye!